we'd send out a little midweek devotional, and this past Sunday, Vinny talked about the passages that had to do with the soils and seed falling on the soils, and those represented different things. And that made me think about our garden. I love gardening. Those of you who know me already know this. I love, love, love vegetable garden. Flowers and I don't get along as well, but vegetables and I seem to like each other. And in Illinois, we had a really, really large garden. At one point, we had a 2,000 square foot garden. I know nothing about gardening, so I just was like, let me throw some seeds out there, kind of like the parable. I'm just going to throw some out there and see what comes up. And I learned over time, you know, what worked and what didn't work. And then, of course, we moved out here to California, and I wanted to put in a garden because I love the vegetable garden. So we built these raised beds this year and planted a bunch of plants, and I love it because we can actually grow things year-round here, which we were not able to do in the state of Illinois. But I'm learning that there's some really big differences with the climate here and how I need to care for the plants. I found out I am overwatering my tomatoes here. I thought you couldn't kill a tomato plant if you tried. But apparently here, with how hot it is, I've been watering and watering and watering, and it's too much water for them. And so now I'm trying to save them. Other things I'm learning, just, you know, the sun is often too hot for some of the plants here, and I'm learning I got to put some shade over some of them, and otherwise the leaves start to burn up. But how that relates to the spiritual life is we have to do things to cultivate and prepare for gardening. And then once we are gardening, we have to keep doing things to keep the soil enriched, to make sure that we've pruned the plants, we're picking things when fruit's ripe on the plant, and continuing to keep the garden going. When we don't have those right conditions, the garden doesn't flourish. And so obviously this year I'm learning some things and saying, next year I already have a plan for how I'm gonna make some changes and adapt. So just like our parable, and Vinny actually a couple weeks ago had a book by an author named Richard Foster. We like Richard Foster a lot, and we would recommend any of his books. He's got another one called The Spirit of the Disciplines as well. He talks about sowing to the Spirit. And this is really key because we live by grace. We can't do anything, but what we can do is we can work with God. And what working with God looks like is creating the right conditions for the Spirit to come into our life and for us to be able to hear and to be able to collaborate, be co-creators and collaborators with God in the spiritual life. If I don't take the time to cultivate myself spiritually and put myself into a position where I can hear, then I'm going to have a really hard time and I'm going to struggle in the spiritual life. Like Vinny mentioned Sunday, I'm going to have mountaintop experiences that fizzle out really fast because it'll just be like hey, I haven't really spent any time with God. I haven't done anything to cultivate the spiritual life, but then I have a moment, and those moments are real, right? We all have them. But then it maybe the next thing comes along and the next moment I'm fearful or something happens and my emotions and my mood changes right away. So it takes the long haul. We built these beds, we sealed them up for the weather, we got soil delivered. I made Vinny, I call him Farm Boy sometimes based off the Princess Bride movie. I love that movie. So I say, Farm Boy, you got to put the dirt in the raised beds for me. So he did that. And then we started with the plants and the seeds and we get them going, and then we've had to change them out, right? I had lettuce and kale in and spinach, and then I changed them out for different plants at different times of the year. And then even with all the weed paper we put down, look at this. I'm off my shoe here. Look at this. I'm still having to work to pull this grass and these weeds that come up. And if I don't, over time, you can see this pepper plant here, it's just gonna get overtaken. So the same thing is true for us with our spiritual life and our spiritual walk with God. It takes time and it takes the long haul to keep continuing to cultivate it. We never stop learning. We never stop growing. And so if we spend the time in different seasons of life doing the disciplines, silence, solitude, prayer, making ourselves aware and asking God, what are you trying to teach me or tell me at this time? We're going to be open up to sowing to the Spirit. And when God does speak and he does bring a word to us, we're going to be more likely to hear and act on it. So we hope you have a great week. Please feel free to reach out to us with questions or thoughts, and then let's cultivate together, even if we can't be in person together. When you're out in your garden or at home, maybe make it a point this week to spend some time asking God, what you can do to cultivate the spiritual life.